episode 527 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. Here at the Unpopular Podcast, not really asked you to agree with me, I'm asking you to hear me out. You know, sometimes the God works in mysterious ways, man. Sometimes the planets align for you perfectly without you even knowing. I've been doing a preseason divisional breakdown of every division, obviously, and we are at the last division, the NFC East. I wanted to say that for last, obviously, because I'm a Washington fan. I'm from D.C. or Maryland, D.C. area, and I wanted to save the NFC East for last, and thank God I did, because boy. I'm going to tell you, bro, the Dallas, man, let me explain to you how we got here. And what here is Micah Parsons not being a Dallas Cowboy anymore. Let me explain to you exactly how we got to the fact of Week 1 of the NFL season, Micah Parsons will be a Green Bay Packer instead of a Dallas Cowboy. There's a couple of angles that you can approach this with. The one I'm going to start is we cannot tell Jerry Jones how to operate a business. I can't sit here and be like, Jerry, that's not how you operate. That's not how you run a business. Because obviously, things that Jerry Jones has done has been successful. That the Dallas Cowboys are one of the most, popular, profitable teams in the world. So my business acumen obviously doesn't matter when we, in the grand scheme of things, when we talk about Jerry Jones and how he does things with, the Dallas Cowboys. However, I do think that we have to talk about recent results instead of the overall arching team. The Dallas Cowboys haven't been title contenders essentially in the last 30 years. To put that into perspective, I'm 31 years old. So the last time Dallas was contenders, I was 1 year old. And a lot of that is due to decision-making by Jerry Jones. A lot of that is Jerry Jones operating in a way that hasn't necessarily been the best solution for Dallas. And I'm not saying that Jerry Jones is a bad owner. I'm not saying that Jerry Jones is just making terrible decisions, but what I'm saying is the decisions that Jerry Jones has made in the last at least 30 years has not resulted in success. And I think that this whole situation should and could be a lesson. With everything I just said, understand that there is a way to go about things in the NFL, and there's a way not to. And it feels like Jerry Jones did almost everything you're not supposed to do in this negotiation process with Micah Parsons. The number one thing Jerry Jones did was he thought that he can conduct a official meeting with a player without, and when I mean meeting, official meeting with a player to discuss contract situations without the player's agent present. Now, again, that may have worked for other players. That may have worked several times for Jerry Jones. This is not one of those times. Jerry Jones conducted a meeting with Micah Parsons sometime this offseason. And in that meeting, it was determined that they had a deal done. They came to terms with whatever Jerry Jones was willing to pay and whatever Micah Parsons was willing to accept. The issue is this happened essentially, quote unquote, behind closed doors. This happened without Micah Parsons' agent. I know you have the Lamar Jacksons of the world. I know you have the Bobby Wagners of the world, players that don't have their own agent and essentially, conduct deals themselves. Micah Parsons is not one of them. And even Lamar Jackson has his mom, who I believe is acting as his agent. So you don't do that. Or if you do that, you cannot think that whatever goes on in that meeting is concrete. And I think that is how we got here. We got here because Jerry Jones thought that whatever was discussed in that meeting, whatever Micah agreed to without his agent, was concrete. And I'm sorry, but it was farthest from that. When we're talking about money this large, when we're talking about dividends this massive, you have to have an agent present. Or what are you doing? You have to have an agent present if the player has an agent. I'll just say that. So that kind of leads to the second domino. You have to understand, you have to know that Micah Parsons is going to go back to his agent and discuss whatever you just discussed with him. And clearly, there were things that you discussed that probably went over Micah Parsons' head that the agent was able to look at and be like, no, that doesn't benefit you in the slightest. That does not have your best interest. That's probably why Jerry Jones wanted to have it behind closed doors, because he understands there's a difference between talking to a player and an agent. And I'm not calling Micah Parsons or any player dumb, but what I'm saying is you pay agents to spot things that you are unable to spot. You also pay agents to have your best interest. So Micah Parsons goes back to his agent like, whoa, that's not how you're supposed to conduct business. We're not doing that. The agent and Micah Parsons, I'm not about to continue to do this because it's not, you're affecting me. Which led to Jerry Jones and talking in the media and essentially bad-mouthing Micah Parsons. You know, when we talked about when Micah Parsons did the trade request, I don't think there was any part of Micah Parsons that thought that trade request was going to be honored. And to be honest with you, that's usually the case. Usually, when a star player requests a trade, it's not honored. It usually puts fire under the organization, which then helps in the negotiation, and then they get what they get. We'll talk about Terry McLaurin towards the end of the episode. But I'm almost sure that when Micah Parsons put in that trade request, he did not think it was going to be honored. And another reason why I'm sure he probably didn't think that is because it should not have been honored. In no world should Micah Parsons not be a Dallas Cowboy. Mind you, I'm a Commanders fan, and I can even see that this was one of the worst decisions that an organization can make. Almost, maybe very close to the same level of when Dallas traded Luka Doncic to the Lakers. But again, this could have all been prevented. You could have paid him a year or two ago when he was less money. But then you see Myles Garrett get paid. Then you see Jamar Chase get paid. Then you see T. Higgins get paid. Then you see T.J. Watt get paid. And all that does is run up the numbers. All that does is makes the person that you should have paid much sooner, much like his value goes up. That's just how the market works. So if you would have done what you were supposed to do and paid him early, he'd be a Cowboy, and two, he wouldn't be as much as you were unwilling to pay him at the time. This Jerry Jones' emotions fueled this trade. And that's one thing that they say. You're not supposed to mix business with emotion and business with personal. But Jerry Jones was upset that Micah Parsons didn't honor a backdoor deal, didn't honor the deal that they had behind closed doors. Not really understanding that no one would do that because, again, you talk to the player without his agent. And I know, I get it. People are trying to spin this as this was actually smart for Dallas. You got 2 first rounds and you got Kenny Clark, who is a really good player. Yeah, but he's also 30. On top of that, as good as Kenny Clark is, he's nowhere close to Micah Parsons. And you didn't have to trade Micah Parsons. Because they're like, well, Micah Parsons, you see how much the Green Bay Packers paid Micah? They paid Micah 4 years, $188 million. I think 137 or close to that guaranteed, which makes him the highest paid, by far, the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Yeah. Dallas could have paid that. Jerry Jones just didn't want to do that. And you're hearing reports now that Micah wanted to stay. He went back to Dallas to negotiate, and they were like, take this deal and no, or you're gone. Jerry Jones was upset that Micah didn't honor a deal that was in place without an agent present. And he also was upset where you saw videos of Micah essentially sulking, essentially pouting on the field. You saw what Micah looked like. He didn't dress. He didn't put on his jersey. I think it was the last preseason game. He was laying on the equipment table. It just didn't look good for Micah Parsons. It didn't look good for the Dallas Cowboys. And I can't stress enough that this all could have been prevented if Jerry Jones would have just, 1, paid Micah early, 2, again, I'm sure that tactic, the whole operating, making deals behind agents' backs, I'm sure that's worked for him before. It's not always going to work. And I said that. I'm like, yo, I understand that you were able to get a deal done at the last minute with Dak Prescott. You were able to get a deal done last minute with CeeDee Lamb. But you have to realize not everyone operates that way. Not everyone is cool with that. Not everyone is okay with dangling the deal until the last moment. That doesn't work for everyone. Micah Parsons is one of those people. One of the reasons why you're hearing people say that this is one of the worst trades, at least in Dallas Cowboys history, is because this didn't have to happen. All of this was missteps and blunders by Jerry Jones and his actions. And on top of that, you let emotions essentially change the course of this franchise. Because let's talk about where this franchise is right now. You have Dak Prescott, you have CeeDee Lamb, you have George Pickens, you have a really young O-line, which I think is going to get better over the year. This could be one of the best offenses, if not the best offense, by year's end in the division. The Dallas Cowboys, their offense can be explosive. When you have two exceptional wide receivers in George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. But your defense was bad last year, might I add. Now, yeah, you can say Deron Bland, he missed time. You can say Trayvon Diggs missed time. You even had Micah Parsons, but this defense was bad last year. And now, essentially, the best player on your team, not just on the defense, on your team just got traded. This has the opportunity to be one of, if not the worst defenses, not just in the division, but in the league. And this is essentially the first time that Dallas is acknowledging and accepting the fact that this isn't a championship caliber team. And you can say, all right, well, he got 2 firsts and a really good defensive player in Kenny Clark. Cool. So I'm not going to go as far as saying it's going to be the worst in the league, but Kenny Clark is not Micah Parsons. They had Micah Parsons last year and they struggled. What do you think they're going to do this year? And then those first-round picks, they're going to be high first-round picks. So what are you going to do with that? I don't think you're going to, because obviously Green Bay is going to be good. I don't think you're going to get the type of player you think you're about to get with those first-round picks. At least you're not about to get a Micah Parsons, I'll tell you that. This reeks of this has all the feelings of when Luka Doncic was traded, because this doesn't happen. You traded your franchise player that I know he put in their trade request that essentially wanted to be there. Every indication, at least before that trade request, said he wanted to be there. But you let poor decision-making and emotions cloud that. Jerry Jones. Because in no world should we get to week 1. You know what? That's another thing. If you were going to do this, why do it a week before the that's another wrinkle to how bad this was. Why do this a week before the season starts? Instead of doing it before, because Micah Parsons has had this trade request for a minute. Why not do this before the draft? So you can operate with this draft, which is a stronger draft than projected to be next year's. Why do this a week before the draft or a week before the season instead of before the draft? If you were going to do this, if you were going to make this move, if you felt how you felt, Jerry Jones, why do this now? you essentially cost yourself a better situation. That's the overarching theme in this. Jerry Jones' decision making is costing Dallas. It's costing Dallas more money when we talk about Dak Prescott, when we talk about CeeDee Lamb. And you just essentially altered the future of this franchise trading Micah Parsons. And then, again, for the people that are saying that Micah Parsons, Dallas shouldn't have done it because you see how much Green Bay paid Micah Parsons. As we clearly have seen, Jerry Jones has no problem with paying people. The man paid Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, I think, Dak Prescott has the highest contract in the NFL right now. So you think he doesn't want to, or what's baffling to me is he didn't want to pay Micah Parsons, who is your best player? And now, which is also shocking turn of events, you trade him to essentially a mini rival of yours. Last time you were in the playoffs, the team that you traded him to bounced your ass out the playoffs. And best and believe, I know I already did my NFC North, but best believe that changes a lot of things for the Green Bay Packers in the NFC North. I'd be shocked at this point if the Green Bay Packers don't finish atop the NFC North. You essentially bolstered the Green Bay Packers as a legitimate Super Bowl contender. You traded a man. I know we put in the trade request, but you traded a man that didn't want to be traded. Same as Luka Doncic. I know he didn't put in a trade request, but Luka didn't want to be traded from Dallas. Micah didn't want to be traded from Dallas. Again, I can't question Jerry Jones' business acumen, but it seems like the last few decades, a lot of his decision-making has made the team worse. I feel bad for Brian Schottenheimer. Imagine that, bro. Your first go around at a head coaching position and your first year as a Dallas Cowboys head coach, and your owner / GM essentially trades your best player. Damn. You know, after hearing this, I was shocked as to. I know. Okay, so how this went down was, I think there was a report that came out saying that Dallas is open to trading Micah Parsons, and like a few hours later, or maybe the next day, is either a few hours later or the next day, that's when the news dropped about the Green Bay Packers. Now, we've heard for days that Green Bay has been very aggressive in trying to get Micah Parsons. Obviously, we didn't think it was going to happen because we know the history, or at least the recent history that Green Bay has with Dallas. On top of that, I didn't think that the Dallas Cowboys was going to be smart enough to trade him in the conference. I thought he was definitely going to the AFC if he was getting traded. But then again, I also didn't think he was getting traded. But I'm just like, okay, if you're someone like Cincinnati, if you're someone like the New England Patriots, if you're someone like the Baltimore Ravens, if you're someone like the Buffalo Bills, how do you not get a deal done when you see what it cost the Green Bay Packers? You're telling me you don't have 2 firsts to pony up? Maybe that wasn't. I don't know, but it's like New England couldn't give you 2 firsts and a good player. The Ravens couldn't do that. The Cincinnati Bengals couldn't do that. The Buffalo Bills couldn't do that. I promise you, if Micah Parsons was on the Cincinnati Bengals, we would be talking about the AFC North and the Bengals much differently. I know they just paid Trey Henderson for the year, but yeah. If he was on the New England Patriots, we'd be looking at them much differently. If he was on the Buffalo Bills, we'd be looking at them much differently. Same exact way we're looking at the Green Bay Packers. I don't know how you're like especially the New England Patriots. How are you the Patriots and you don't get a deal done? How are you the Cincinnati Bengals and you don't get a deal done? Then it goes back to, oh, yeah, those are some cheap owners. Yeah. I know I'm, 26 minutes in. And I don't think I've done a great job in expressing. I've done the best job I can, but I don't think I did a great job expressing how monumental this move was. You traded one of the best players in football, a top 10 player in football. Most definitely your best player. You traded him off emotion and because you didn't want you got cheap at the last moment. You got cheap. You weren't cheap with Dak Prescott. You weren't cheap with CeeDee Lamb. You weren't cheap with George Pickens, but you want to get cheap with Micah Parsons? Because he didn't want to honor a deal that you made behind closed doors without his agent? When I don't know anybody that would do that? And on top of that, if you were going to trade him, why trade him a week before the season? Well, Dallas is going to be very interesting. I think Dallas is going to, if everyone is healthy, Dallas is going to look a lot like the Cincinnati Bengals last year. A very good offense, not too good defense. Because remember, Cincinnati had names. They had players. They just couldn't put it together to have a good defense. You have Deron Bland. You have Kenny Clark. You have Trayvon Diggs. I don't think that's going to amount to much. I think Dante Fowler's back here, so yeah. They really traded Micah Parsons. Again, this is the equivalent of Dallas trading Luka Doncic. It's crazy how Dallas, wow. Well, Brian Schottenheimer, I hope you enjoy the season because I don't know if you get another one. That's all I'm saying. Speaking of enjoy this season, let's move over to the New York Giants. I want to preference this by saying that a lot of this is different and a lot of this has changed because of Dallas. When the best player in the division, that's the thing. We're not just talking about the best player on one team. We're talking about one of the best players in football. When he leaves or when he gets traded, that changes the entire trajectory of the entire division, the entire conference. And don't get me wrong, man. I don't think that this is going to be a great season for the Giants. I mean, you have Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, and Jackson Dart as your quarterback room. There's not a terrible quarterback room, but that's not a Super Bowl, especially at this time. I think Russell Wilson is still good. I think Russell Wilson still has juice, but I just don't think that he is good enough at this point of his career to be the the starting quarterback for a playoff team that has deep aspiration. I don't see that. I definitely don't see that with Jameis Winston. And I will say this about Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart, I was very skeptical when they drafted Jackson Dart as high as they did. I was shocked. I'm like, why the hell did you draft Jackson Dart? As good as Jackson Dart was at Ole Miss, and he was cool, but he wasn't. I didn't expect him to be one of those type draft picks, but he did exceptional in the preseason. So I will say Jackson Dart did pretty good. But I don't think that this is one of those teams where I don't. Again, I'll say this. I with Jackson Dart, with Jameis Winston, with Russell Wilson, whoever finishes the season, I don't think that this is one of those teams that that is a player away. I know they have arguably the best D lineman. Actually, I don't think there's really an argument. They have the best D lineman in football in Dexter Lawrence. I know they have Brian Burns. They have Kayvon Thibodeau, but I don't know if he's going to be on the move or not. I don't know. I'm looking. They have Cam Scatterbo, which is pretty good. And of course they have Malik Neighbors, who is one of the best young wide receivers in the league. They have pieces. And we know how good Brian Daboll can be as a coach. I mean, he won Coach of the Year. He helped people change their viewpoint on Daniel Jones. I mean, I would say that season single-handedly is the reason why Daniel Jones is still in the league, and the fact that he was a high draft pick. But I think that they have a scary defense, because I forgot Abdul Carter. Bruh. This, I will say this, man. You have to. I feel bad for offensive lines, man. That has Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, and Abdul Carter coming at you like that. They possibly can have one of the best pass rushes in football. Like, man. If you saw what they look like in the preseason, especially Abdul Carter, man. I know it was the preseason and those, but he looked like a man. I don't know what the hell they feeding him in Penn State, but from him to go, from Carter to come from Penn State, Micah Parsons to come from Penn State. I mean, there's been greats like LeVar Arrington. Man, I will say that they'll have one of the best pass rushes in football, in my opinion. If what we saw in the preseason from Abdul Carter can translate along with Brian Burns, along with Dexter Lawrence, then I think that I think that they have one of the yeah. But I will say this. I don't going into this, I think that there's still a chance that they can be the worst team in the division. Before doing all this, and before the Micah Parsons trade, that's another thing. Did you see when Jerry Jones kept calling Micah Parsons Michael Parsons? Before the Micah Parsons trade, I would say that it's very easy that this is the worst team. And I'm not saying that they're terrible, but they have by far the worst offensive line in this division. And I think when you have a quarterback, when you have three quarterbacks, Jackson Dart obviously is a little younger, or a lot younger, and a little more mobile. But when you have three quarterbacks that aren't the most mobile, and you have one of the worst offensive lines in the division, that's not going to bode well. Yeah, your defensive line, your defensive pass rush is incredible. But that's another thing because I don't even think their corners are that good. They're now again. I'm not disrespecting that pass rush, but their cornerbacks. Let me see. Yeah, no, their quarterbacks aren't great. And what about the safety? Javon Harlan, he's okay. Yeah, nah. I just I don't think that this team is going to be the back end of their defense is going to be rough. But if they get that pass rush, if they get that pass rush going, then it's curtains for a lot of people. But that was before the Micah Parsons trade. Now I think that they have a good shot of at least finishing third in the division. I don't see any higher than third. And I will say that I was extremely wrong about Jackson Dart. I just thought he was going to be buns. Then he was one of the best rookies in the preseason. Now, obviously, the preseason is not the regular season. We know this, and I'm very interested to see how long Russell Wilson lasts as the starting quarterback, because I think that's kind of what happened. I think that what we saw from Jackson Dart in the preseason kind of sped up the expectation that this team has for Russell Wilson, in a sense of, I think the leash got much shorter for Russell Wilson after they saw what we got from Jackson Dart, and we know New York. We know how rabid the fan base can be. We know how passionate, I'll say, the fan base can be. And you give one or two bad games in a row, well, your decision making costing an important game. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, and I don't think Jameis Winston is. I think Jameis Winston is more there, just a veteran presence. I think they'll go from Russell Wilson to Jackson Dart. I don't foresee Jameis Winston. I could be wrong. I don't think he'll ever be the legit starting quarterback of this team. So I'm interested to see how long they give, or how long of a leash they give Russell Wilson. And I'm also interested to see what they do with Kayvon Thibodeau. I feel like for the last few years, he has been on the trade block. Now, again, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, I forgot to say him, Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence, and Abdul Carter, that is a pass rush for you right there. That again, the Giants have the ability to have one of the best, if not the best, pass rushes in all of football when you have those four coming at you. However, you've heard year after year Kayvon Thibodeau be on the trade block, so I wonder if they're gonna pay or pull that trigger. And then I also want to see what Scatterboo looks like. I know that they said he had a really good off season, a really good training camp, really good preseason. I want to see what he looks like behind the behind the ones, behind that offensive line that isn't that good. So there's a lot of question marks when it comes to New York, but I say if they play to their best, again, you still have one of the best young receivers in the league. When they play to one of their best, they have the best pass rush in football, arguably, and they have one of the best, a top 6 or 7 receiver. Actually, I'll say probably top 10 receiver. And then you got Brian Daboll. This could be an interesting season. We will see. But yeah, I think the theme of this season for the Giants is how long of a leash, how long until because I think it's going to happen. As unfortunate as it is for Russell Wilson, I think the clamoring is going to get a lot, especially after a bad game or two. The clamoring is going to get very loud for Jackson Dart because of what we saw in the preseason. So I'm interested to see how long that takes, but we'll see. Speaking of we'll see, going about this, I was trying to I was trying to convince myself in figuring out, is there a team, not just in the NFC East, but is there a team in the NFC that can compete with the Eagles when the Eagles are on? Now, again, this was obviously before the Micah Parsons trade. But I think that there's a lot of question marks when it comes to other teams in the NFC. Like, perfectly healthy. Obviously, I would think that when you look at the team wide, I would think that the Detroit Lions can go toe to toe with the Philadelphia Eagles. But Detroit, like we talked about, I think last episode, they lost both their coordinators. Obviously, now that Micah is on the Green Bay Packers, I think the Green Bay Packers can definitely go toe to toe. But that was, we need to see what Jordan Love we get. I don't think I know when I was doing my divisional breakdown of the AFC North, and I said that I think that the Baltimore Ravens arguably have the best roster in football. I said arguably because there's the team that you can argue has the best roster outside of Baltimore is the Philadelphia Eagles. One reason why they're the defending champs, but you still have, like, oh boy, this almost every position is stacked. Like, you still have Kenyon Mitchell, who was great last year, Cooper DeJean, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis. Excuse me. Zach Bond. I'm sorry. Nolan Smith. I know I'm going to say her last name wrong, but Azeez Ojulari. Ojulari. I know I said your name. I apologize, bro. Obviously, you have Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. They have A.J. Dillon, Reed Blankenship, Lane Johnson, who is future Hall of Famer, Jordan Mailata. They have the best offensive line in football. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Dallas Goedert, A.J. Brown, Jahan Dotson, John Mechie they got from Houston, and Devontae. This is the best roster in football. Or one of the best. I'm going to say the best right now because mostly this roster won a Super Bowl. So this is the best roster in football. And this roster's so good, it allowed people to change their opinion about Nick Sirianni. People hated Nick Sirianni, but the proof is, the results is there. Been to 2 Super Bowls, won one, you know what I'm saying? The question is, can they repeat? And I'm going to save, I think probably next episode, I'm going to save all of my all of my award predictions and who's going to win. I'm going to save that for next episode. But I will say this. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that the Eagles are just going to walk into the Super Bowl and they're just going to repeat as 2-time champs. But I will say that they have a very good chance. When you look at the league, and especially look at the NFC, most of the teams don't have what the Eagles have. Now, yes, I know that Kellen Moore is gone. He was offensive coordinator for the Eagles. Now he's the head coach for the Saints. I think that could hurt. But when you have future Hall of Famers scattered throughout this entire roster, and your roster is as deep as it is, especially the defense. Their defense was historic last year, and I know they lost some key pieces, but they kept some key pieces too. Being able to keep Zach Bond is huge. Still having the great whites, Cooper DeJean and Reed Blankenship is huge. Saquon Barkley could have broke 2,000 yards last year he sat out the last game, and he definitely would have got it if he played. And all this talk has obviously been around Jalen Hurts and is he a top 10 quarterback? Well, he's a Super Bowl champion. I know that. And if I'm not mistaken, he's a Super Bowl MVP. Yeah, there's not much. I am interested to see what they look like because they did. I'll still say that this is the best roster in football, but they did lose a lot on the defensive side of the ball, and I'm interested to see what their defense like. And whoa, man, my brain just went pretty fast there. Hold on. I am interested to see what they look like on the defensive side of the ball after they lost a bunch of pieces. Even though I don't think there's going to be much of a drop-off because the pieces that they did retain and keep are still top tier. Like, as Jalen Carter is one of the best defensive players in football, And then on top of that, I think the offense is going to look a little different because Kellen Moore is not the offensive coordinator anymore. However, you still have Saquon Barkley, who is the best running back in the league. Jalen Hurts. No matter where you put him, he still gets the job done. I think A.J. Brown's a top 10 wide receiver. You can argue top 5. I think Devontae Smith's a top 15 wide receiver, So, yeah. There's not much analytics when we talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. They're going to be good. They're going to be very good. And I think the question is who in the NFC can really contend with them. There's not many teams that can go toe to toe with the Philadelphia Eagles. But you know one, and I saved it for last. The Washington Commanders. I'm going to give you two versions of this team's breakdown. I'm going to give you the biased version and the unbiased version. Let's start with the biased version. No, what's more fun? Let's start with the unbiased version. I don't expect this team to repeat what they did last year, meaning it's very difficult to expect this Washington team that was viewed as a rebuild just a year ago. It's difficult to expect them to repeat and get back to the NFC Championship. Not saying they can't do it, but it's going to be very hard to expect that because, again, just last year they were supposed to be a rebuild. Now, yes, I think Jayden Daniels had an exceptional season. I think he had the greatest rookie season we've ever seen. The only rookie to ever lead a team to the conference championship. Incredible. I think that because of that, he pushed up that timetable, that rebuild timetable, and he also brought on new expectations. Because, again, we're talking about a NFC conference or NFC championship team now. again, I think Jayden Daniels had the best rookie season we've ever seen. How you argue that, I don't know. And a lot of those key pieces that allowed Washington and helped Washington get to the NFC Championship are still there. Terry McLaurin, who just got paid, I think he's making about $32 a year. Bobby Wagner, one of the best linebackers in the league. Frankie Louvu. You also have Austin Eckler. I know Brian Robinson was traded, but you still have Zach Ertz. A lot of the key pieces that help Washington advance to the NFC Championship are still there, along with Dan Quinn, who and oh my gosh, Cliff Kingsbury. So I think I'm expecting a good year, but I hope that people are not going to say that it was a failed season if they don't make it back to the NFC Championship. Because when you look at that championship run, you go up against a team in the Buccaneers who was injured, and Baker Mayfield had I think a costly decision that ended the game. If you talk about the Detroit Lions, their entire defense was just decimated by injury. And another thing that I saw, and I saw it against the Bucs, I saw it against the Lions, and I also saw it against the Eagles, which ultimately killed them. The margin of error is extremely small in the NFL, especially when you get closer and closer to the Super Bowl. And one thing that good teams are going to do, and obviously when you get to that level, you're playing nothing but good teams, they're going to expose your biggest weakness and exploit it. That's exactly what each of those teams did. When you see what the running back did for the Bucks, what the running back did for the Lions, and what Saquon Barkley did to the Washington Commanders in the NFC Championship. Yeah. On top of that, you lost. Now they lost Jonathan Allen, who now they still have Daron Payne, but Jonathan Allen has been a defensive anchor since he got to Washington. I think he's in Minnesota. Not Minnesota. It is Minnesota Vikings. Yeah, he's in Minnesota now. So that's going to be interesting. You still have Mike Saber still. You still have Marshawn Lattimore, who did not play pretty well against A.J. Brown. He was getting killed. Again, I said Daron Payne. They still have people, and I think it's going to be good. Von Miller came over. Yeah, we have a shot. I think that we have a shot to be really good. And obviously you have Jayden Daniels, who I think is already a top 5 to 7 quarterback in the league. And I will say, however, them adding Deebo Samuels was I think a huge pickup. From Deebo Samuels being your number 2 option. Just opens up this offense exponential. Whoa. I think it widely opens up this offense for Jayden Daniels. Getting a weapon like Deebo, who can be a Swiss Army knife. He doesn't have to be a number 1 option because, again, you pay Terry McLaurin, thank God. I think that this has a chance to be really good. Now, with that, like I said, this is the oldest team in football. Like, I didn't know people noticed. The Washington Commanders is the oldest team in football. Like, as much as we talked about it, let's see. Von Miller is 36. Bobby Wagner is 35. Nick Below he's been in the league for 15 years? Jesus Christ. 36. Like this ain't no young team. Hell, Tress Way is 35. Yeah, nah. But I still think that we have a Zach Ertz. Let me see how old Zach Ertz is. I think Zach Ertz is pretty old. Zach Ertz, tight end. 34. Jesus. Yeah, this is the oldest team in football, and I don't know how that's going to bold for this season. And I don't know if they addressed. I know that they got Von Miller, but I don't know if they addressed their biggest weakness, which was the run defense. I know they got Laramie Tunsil, so I'm not worried about the offensive line, which obviously when you have someone as good as Jayden Daniels, you want to bolster that line, and you want to make sure that whatever line he's behind is A-okay, because that's your franchise player. But Washington, they could not stop the run to save their life last year, and I don't know if they did enough to address that. I don't know if Von Miller is enough to address that. Again, losing Jonathan Allen was huge, even though Deron Payne is back or still there. But yeah, that's one of the things that gives me pause and gives me signs for concern. How are you going to stop the run when you couldn't do it last year? Like, it was, you know what I'm saying? But I'm interested to find out, and I think Washington has a really good shot of being a good team because you have the quarterback, because you have defensive stalwarts that are really good, and you paid Terry. Yes, I think Terry got a lot of money, and I know when you look at the analytics, I know all that. Terry McLaurin is going to be he's 29 right now. He's going to be he's going to be 30 by the end of the season. I get all that, and we know about the statistics of wide receivers declining after we get it. And he's one of the higher paid wide receivers in the league. I get all that. But if you look at the production, if you look at what Terry McLaurin has done, he deserves all of that money. And I think a lot of the success that we saw from Jayden Daniels comes off the back of having a dependable wide receiver, a dependable number one wide receiver like Terry McLaurin. I think he led the league in touchdowns from a wide receiver last year. So I think they should have paid him, and it was smart to pay him. So I'm not mad at that. I think Washington is going to be really good. I really do. And I mentioned this again. We're talking about the oldest team, so injuries can play a part. I hope it doesn't, knock on wood. But I think Washington has a chance to be really good. I don't know if they're on the same level right now as the Eagles, especially when you look at the entire team. But I don't foresee a universe where this Washington team does not make it to at least the playoffs. So that was the unbiased me. It's time for the biased me. We're talking about a team that just went to the NFC Championship last year. Did your favorite team go to? I don't think so. Because there's only two teams. Unless you're an Eagles fan. Your team didn't go to the NFC Championship last year. Your team doesn't have Jayden Daniels. Jayden Daniels is a top 5 quarterback in the league. This team is good enough to win a Super Bowl. Hold on. Okay, I don't know about that. But this team is good enough to make a deep run in the playoffs. Because, don't get me wrong, I like Jalen Hurts. We both share this, Jalen. We both share the same name. Jalen Hurts is not better than Jayden Daniels, in my opinion. The Eagles might have a better team. Jayden Daniels is not better than Jalen. Jayden Daniels is better than Jalen Hurts. We have the oldest team in the league. Okay. We also have Bobby Wagner. We also have Von Miller, who's a Super Bowl champion, and Bobby Wagner, Super Bowl champion. We also have Frankie Louvu. We also have Deebo Samuels. We also have Laramie Tunsil. What are you saying? Does your favorite team have that? No. Yeah, the Detroit Lions, their whole defense was decimated. Well, what you think they finna do with 2 new coordinators? All that creative stuff you saw, you think that's coming back? No. So we're not worried about them. The Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield's finna give you 1 or 2. Not worry about that. Green Bay. That's a tough one right there. Thank you, Dallas. That's a tough one. But Jordan Love ain't Jayden Daniels. All I'm saying is, raise hell. Unbiased me, this team is making it to the NFC Championship. And that's another thing. If it gets lucky, we get lucky. Green Bay might have to face Philly before they see us. And if we got to play one of them and not 2, man, look. I'm trying to tell you. And I said this before, and I'm being serious now. I said this before. I've seen the Mystics win a championship. I've seen the Capitals win a championship or Stanley Cup. I've seen the Nationals win a World Series. If the Wizards or Commanders make it to the NBA Finals or the Super Bowl, I don't care how much it is. Rev up the Klarna. I'm going to that game. Man. I'm serious. I'm going to that game. Just saying. But if we're being serious, and we're ranking the NFC East, I have the Eagles, Washington, New York, because that pass rush is serious, and Dallas. I think Dallas is, and I don't even know health-wise what Dallas is going to look like. So, Philly, Washington, New York, Dallas. They traded Micah Parsons. And what's getting lost in all this is Kenny Clark. I think Kenny Clark is a good defensive player. He's a really good defensive player. But he's also 30. So. And he's not Micah Parsons. But there you have it. That's been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I truly, truly appreciate you guys. If you want an Unpopular Podcast shirt, hoodie, sweater, long sleeve joggers, the link in the description below. I have multiple different colors, multiple different designs. Get your Unpopular Podcast merch today. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to get as many subscribers as possible. If you like the content, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to subscribe. Please leave a comment, like, share, all that. I'm trying to grow the podcast, and I cannot do it without you guys. So please follow on YouTube. It means a lot. Also, with the DSPs, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, please subscribe. Please follow. It means a lot. Again, I'm trying to grow the podcast unilaterally, and I can't do it without you guys' help. No platform is bigger than the other. Please comment. Please share. Please like. Please leave a review. It means a lot. For all my social media, and TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, please follow. I post pretty much daily there. That's where you get reels. That's where you get you can go back and forth. That's the quickest way to get to me. If you keep it respectful, I don't mind going back and forth. It just means that you're listening to what I'm saying and you have an opinion. Both I care passionately about. Again, you keep it respectful, and I don't mind going back and forth. I don't mind hearing you. I don't mind debating with you. Just, again, keep it respectful. And follow the socials. Until next time, much love.